Superintendent John Trout began a qualified FMLA leave starting May 30th, 2024, and continuing through July 5th, 2024. Mr. Trout fully intends to return to full-time work on Monday, July the 8th, 2024. During Mr. Trout's absence, HCCSC Director of Secondary Education Chuck Brimbury, HCCSC Director of Elementary Education Jay Peters, HCCSC Executive Secretary Cindy Gray, and HCCSC CFO Valerie Moore are responsible for managing all portfolio responsibilities of the superintendent's office at no additional compensation to them or cost to HCCSC. Throughout the remainder of the FMLA leave, Mr. Trout will not monitor his HCCSC emails, district phone, text messages, voicemails, or work from either his school or home office. Superintendent Trout has one final round of treatments and therapies scheduled for this week. He apologizes for the inconvenience his absence may cause. However, he is looking forward to coming back to full-time work on July 8th, 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Peters. First tonight on the agenda, we have Kenny Butler, who's our Director of Marketing at HCCSC, and a couple of gentlemen, Ben Gregory and John Crilly, are here. For our public and for our board, a reminder, Brand Innovation Group has been working with Mr. Trout, Mr. Peters, myself, and a large group, and Kenny, under Kenny's direction, to look at the branding of HCCSC and to look at different possibilities. Tonight is a presentation that you will see for the first time, and our public will see for the first time. Our principals, Mr. Peters, saw last week, is that correct? Last week, and they're involving stakeholders at this time. So this is a work session, but it has been narrowed a little bit for some open topics, and we have about 30 minutes maybe to discuss tonight. So Kenny, if you'll take us through kind of where we're at and introduce our speakers tonight.
Yeah, this is Ben Gregory from Brand Innovation Group. John is he at
He's in another event tonight.
Yeah, so that was kind of last minute, but he apologizes for not being here. Yeah, we are going to be sharing with you brand attributes, some background information on how we got to this point, and then we'll be revealing what I would consider the fun stuff. So the visuals that our community, our schools will interact with.
And Mr. Butler, to be clear for our board and our public purposes tonight, these are a more narrowed version, but certainly not the final product. This is for discussion purposes tonight with our board as we move down this lane, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for allowing us to be here tonight. We're super excited. This has been a joy to work with the team, with Chuck and Cindy and Jay, Kenny and John when he's been available. It's been a great opportunity for the Brand Innovation Group. We're excited to be partnering with you in this way. The last time we were here and before you, we talked a little bit about the brand attributes of the organization after doing some research. And I'll, if you don't mind, Cindy, flip to that next one. There you go. You'll see the timeline there, but also you'll see at the bottom, you'll see that we have talked to several key stakeholders in this process, including 5 employees, 9 community members. We did a survey to the community, which received a great response of over 1,000 community members responded. We looked at the competitive schools that surrounded you, and so we had an opportunity to see and hear a lot of great stuff. And I think the summary I would put is that people are overwhelmingly excited about Huntington County Community Schools. You should be very proud of what you're doing here, and that showed up. Now, when we asked a very key question at the end of the survey process, we realized that there was some disconnect. And just as a reminder, I think John talked to you all about this last time, but in spite of the fact that overwhelmingly people felt positive about Huntington County Community Schools, when we asked them the Net Promoter Score question of how likely is it you would recommend Huntington County Community Schools to a friend or colleague, the numbers flipped. There was over half of individuals were considered detractors in that case. And as John claimed last time, we believe that it's an unchallenged negativism and the lack of proactive communication to parents in the community that we're setting that up, because there are all kinds of great things that are happening with Huntington County Community Schools. We just need to be better at telling it. And so that was the effort that we undertook with this process, to give you a story, to give you messaging, both from a verbal perspective, things that you will say, things that we'll write about, as well as a visual perspective, to really bring Huntington County Community Schools to another level. If you don't mind flipping that again, Cindy. So I want to begin with the messaging side of it. And I'm going to read this to you. This is what we would call the brand story, and hopefully it sums up all the wonderful things that we believe Huntington County Community School are. Schools and communities are inherently linked. Childhood friends become neighbors, and classroom skills become career skills. That's why Huntington County Community Schools proudly serves as a catalyst for both student and community prosperity in Huntington County, Indiana. Our dynamic curriculum, compassionate employees, and community focus put families' minds to rest when their children are in our care. We're confident that the lessons learned by every student every day will prepare them for whatever life takes them after they leave our halls. All of our staff members, no matter what subject they teach, what office they work in, or even what building they service, are willing to go out of their way to help students thrive in all aspects of life. Our students are what make our schools great places to learn and grow, and they're the reason we love what we do. Many of us grew up here, and many of us have children currently in the school system. That means we're uniquely positioned to have empathy and appreciation for students, parents, and our county as a whole. In the classroom, our students get to see firsthand how supportive environments are made by working together, building each other up, and problem solving as a united team. The goal is that they'll take these life lessons and personal experiences and use them to create a brighter future, because strong students make a strong community. Each member of Huntington County has a role to play in encouraging the next generation and making this a great place to live, and we work hard to do our part. As we unite, we're able to foster well-educated and capable students that will be excited not just to enter the workforce, but to enter Huntington County's workforce. That's the brand story. From this, we'll be able to begin to take messaging and do a much better job of communicating the value that is Huntington County Community Schools. Obviously, there's going to be a lot more content that's created with the help of Kenny to be very specific as we begin to launch those messages, but what you can see here is kind of our first organized message out to the marketplace. We're going to spend a little bit more time on visuals, the fun stuff, as Kenny would say. What you see here, this collection of colors and fonts and graphic styles, is a glimpse into kind of the halfway process that we use to build brands. When we look at your brands, and you'll see on this board right here, and I think we have another example later on, you'll see that the schools currently, because they kind of existed independently somewhat from a marketing perspective, they have a lot of uniqueness in their identity, and there's not a lot of commonality. There's not a lot of that united feel that we want this organization to have. But the other piece of that is we don't want to make every school look exactly the same. They all have character. They all represent a part of your community that is very, very important. And so we don't want to just broad brush that away. If you think of the example of Norwell, they have a big N, I think, as their primary logo, and every school has that big N. We wanted to allow for the uniqueness of the communities and what the schools have stood for so long to come out in our design, but still find a way to make them feel represented and look as like they're a part of the overall organization. So one of the things that we did was standardize the colors. You wouldn't believe how many reds you have until you actually start to inventory all those reds. And what that represents is a waste in time, a waste in efficiency, and so it can translate to real value to make sure that we're all using colors in a consistent way. So the first thing we did is we standardized the colors and have allowed the schools to determine, as you'll see in some of these other examples we have, you'll be able to see that they've been able to select some colors to feel that's consistent with who they have been in the past, but also, again, coming from feeling like it's all part of one organization. You'll notice there's some colors in there that you might not expect, like green and maybe navy, maybe even gold. Those are because those colors existed before we started this project, and what we want to do is honor what, for example, Roanoke has been green for quite some time. We wanted to honor that past, but bring it into a color palette that felt like it was all similar and all tied together. So you can see there we standardized the color palettes for the schools. Next page you'll see is the example of it as it currently stands. You'll see that there's several schools that have more than one mascot design, more than one logo. You'll see there's a lot of different styles represented there. So we face the challenge of how do we take these styles, which in some cases are very ornate or intricate, in other cases might have come from like a clip art file. How do we honor those? How do we bring those forward and begin to create consistency around those? So you'll see in this next example what we're recommending as a solution for the schools. What we decided we wanted to do was take the name of the school, the first letter, or in some cases, if it's, for example, Flint Springs, to represent it as FS. We wanted to use that letter and then incorporate the mascot into the name to provide character for each of those locations. So you'll see in the case of Huntington North High School that has proud Vikings, we kept the Viking helmet and incorporated that into the H. The Horace Mann has the Husky down there in the middle, and so we incorporated that image of the Husky. So the goal there was, again, to take those current mascots and incorporate them into what we would consider to be the formal logo of the school. What that doesn't represent, however, are the mascots. So we are in the process of working with the schools. The principals have already seen all these. And last week, like Chuck said, we were very pleased with their feedback on it. They all overwhelmingly supported these designs, and we're excited about them. So I'll show you then each school with its mascot. So you'll notice that we're applying a style that while, again, there's a distinctness for each school, there's still a style that makes it feel apart. So you have, for example, you have the Viking for Huntington North, the Cougars for Crestview Middle School, the Raiders for Riverview. I should mention, I apologize, I forgot, we did not change any mascots. These were the existing mascots. There's one school, and I'll talk about it when we get to it, where we're still trying to determine what to do. It didn't really have a formal mascot, but all of these were pre-existing mascots that we just brought into a consistent palette. Next, you have the Cardinals from Andrews. These are all custom illustrations as well. Falcons for Flint Spring. Horace Mann Huskies. Lincoln Eagles. The next one is Roanoke. Now, the current mascot for the Roanoke is no longer used. We're okay with that. We're working with the principal right now to figure out what that mascot might be. I'm glad to hear that that principal is incorporating some feedback from the district, from their constituents, to see what's going to resonate well. But we got them started. There's a popular program at the school called the Rockstar Program. So we at least started there to give them somewhat of a vision of what they could be. But that is subject to change with their feedback. The last one is the Salamonie, I think it's the last one? Yeah, Salamonie Rebels. We decided to go with the horse. Try figuring out how you're going to create a rebel in today's society. That's what we went with, the horse. And then a hat for the Salamonie official school symbol. All of these, again, are subject to further comments from the principals and their team. But as I said, so far it's been really well received. Next page shows you an example of them all together. You'll notice that some of them are slightly different. Some have circles, some don't. That decision was made really based on the image and what we were trying to accomplish. From a professional perspective, we're not concerned that some have circles and some don't. I think if you look at all of them, they feel consistent. So we're pretty excited about those. Then as we began to think about the logo for the corporation, and we went through a few different iterations with our team, got some great feedback. As we began to look at this, and we began to say, how do we take a corporation that we really want to stress this idea of unity, we really want to stress this idea of separate parts coming together to build this amazing county. What could that look like if we tried to express that as a logo? And ironically, as we put this together, we had the inspiration to suggest this. And we've got a little transition video for you to watch, but you'll also see it on subsequent pages. So what was really exciting when we got down to it is there currently, if you didn't know, there's 9 schools that make up Huntington County Community Schools. And what we thought was fantastic about that is it creates that grid that allows us to represent from a conceptual standpoint every school, because every school is important, and together they form Huntington County Community Schools. And we loved that idea. So that's the proposed corporation logo. So you'll see all the squares flipped like that, and then the actual Huntington County Community Schools logo recommendation. Then the next page just shows you what that could look like. And again, if you think back to that mood board that had a lot of different pictures and graphics and colors and fonts, all those become tools, become assets to develop this story. And so you can see some examples. Before we even really get started thinking about what should they exactly look like, here's some easy examples to imagine what all this brand looks like when it's brought together. Then the last piece, and I have some larger, I have a larger board for you to look at later on if you would like. I'll leave it up, but it shows you, will show you the difference between the style that we currently have versus the new proposed style that feels, I think, a lot more consistent. It allows the expression of each individual school to be who they are, but it still brings them together to be a part of that community school corporation. So I'll flip that board, and then I'll be ready for questions.
And Board, while we're in the process here, just keep in mind, this is your first look at this. It's certainly been a lot of meetings to give you different things to look at, but we are acutely aware that the input of all those groups, including the 7 of you, becomes the final product. And so we have to have had to sift down, and they've done an amazing job of getting it to this point. I'll just say some of our meetings, there's been some changes based on the makeup of that meeting, i.e. Chuck Brimbury and others. And I only say that because we want input, even if you say, I like this, don't like this, what have you thought about this? That's good stuff. It's think tank time for us, and we don't want to be rushed on this, but we want it right. But everybody has timelines if we're going to utilize it at some point. So tonight is your first look, and so I know when we're finished over here, they're going to take questions, and Kenny can field those for all of us as well as Big.
All right, I'll go first. So a few years ago, it's probably been a few years ago, we redid the high school, the Viking and stuff. So is this the same Viking that we approved a few years ago, or is this a little bit deviation from that? The current Viking, which you see over there on that table, we use that as an
very, very difficult to pull off in all the different areas where you need it today. So that was our inspiration, but what you'll see, and if you want, we can flip back to it, you'll see that it's been simplified substantially to still have what, there you see it there in the top left corner. So it should be, it's the same guy, he got a haircut a little bit, but he's more simplified to allow us to use it in all the various marketing ways that we need to in today's society.
I know we talked about different Viking logos. I wasn't sure. I think we kind of just said go with this one because that's the one that most people were using at that time, but then we were going to,
We were told that
Reconsider.
wouldn't work.
that was going to be what we did in here because
Yeah, but it wouldn't work.
we wanted to take more time and think about logos was my recollection.
Yeah, I'm not saying I don't like him.
Yeah.
You just, at that time, we had talked about, we have so many different Vikings when
Yeah.
you look around. And so now here we are, and I don't know if it's a different Viking again or not, but, and I'm not saying I don't like him.
Sure.
I like him, but it's another Viking.
Sure.
Yeah. And it's kind of like the same thing with the Huntington North logo, are you thinking for like the sports and stuff, using that logo for sports, or is this just like letterhead logo?
We have to talk about all of those things and how those things are used. Again, what we are trying to do, and there's going to be a necessary amount of change if you want to present a consistent and organized vision to who Huntington County is. If you allow too much of the old stuff to exist, then you're really going to dampen the story that you're trying to tell, because you're trying to present a good face. So that means that you have to have a shirt and pants when you go out, and it needs to be consistent. But how that actually happens and what length of time you take to make that conversion, that's also up for discussion. We need to do it in a very in a way that
Yeah, and I'm not saying I don't like the Huntington North logo that you presented. I do like it, but I don't know that I'd want to see it on a baseball hat. To me, it wouldn't look cool on a baseball hat.
Right.
But it might look good on letterhead or, somewhere else.
Yep.
Just depending on where it's placed, and so that was my curiosity on that.
Yeah, I think all of this is to be ironed out as we begin to push through first we decide, is this the direction we want to go? And then the pace of which you do that, and really, there's a lot of culture, especially the baseball team you mentioned. There may be certain situations where those things never change, but really, that's a decision that you'll make moving forward.
But you have to have the base, and this is basically what we're talking about, is creating the base for the school. And then from there, then we can look at expanding that, taking that base and expanding all the way down to the sports teams, the clubs, and everything else, correct? But until we have the base, we can't really take that next step, right?
Exactly. We're focused on presenting a strong image to the community, to let people know this is the amazing place that is Huntington schools. How we begin to push that through really becomes a decision point at the ground or tactical level. Kenny will have a lot of say. We would encourage you to rely on Kenny. He's one of the strongest. It's funny, we work with a lot of marketing directors, as you can imagine. He's been a delight and a surprise in that his proficiency and understanding of the importance of brand and how important it is to protect what's going on within your school system. We're excited about his ability to roll this out.
And Matt, super question and follow up with Ryan and so on. These same things were going on in multiple meetings with us. What does the mascot end up like? And then can we make that uniform? And then does the block H, where does that fit in? Well, it fits in, at least on the presentation at the corporation level. That's one they're showing you. But there's a lot of history of that within the high school as well, as you see on multiple facilities. So those are the discussions as we move forward from your group, from our group, that are going to be had. And so I think they're great questions, and I think that's right where what we should be talking about. Great question.
So a few years ago, when we went through it with Kenny on the high school, we did font and stuff like that. Are we doing font too? Okay. So that, what you presented is the font or whatever.
Yes, sir. You got all new, all standardized colors, standardized fonts. What we're trying to give you is a very, very robust toolbox of branding assets to be able to apply across the entire corporation, so that everybody begins to sound related, sound connected, as they still go about giving their own individual messages.
So the only thing that sticks out right now that I just really do not like, and it's up there right now, is the HHS. There is some storied stuff that I don't even want to go down, but I think that needs to have the N in it. I understand what you were doing, because you were trying to have that 3 logo like everyone else does, but I think that one has to break it, because that just opens up too many and old runes. I would rather see that one be the oddball in the grand scheme of things.
Chuck's smiling over here because I think it's already come up.
Okay.
We put there and out there, well, for one, you can see it for consistency.
Yeah.
But you also see in some of the other slides, we intentionally picked a color from the color palette that was not typically used to allow for that conversation to start. And sometimes you get stuck in your head, and you start, we all do. We like comfort. We don't like change. So to put it out there as a comfort food and just say, yeah, that's cool. It doesn't allow for you to, well, one, affirm what you actually believe sometimes. So if you look, we put crimson and red for Andrews. I was 110% confident that they would ask for black. But not giving them the opportunity to at least see another color, to see what it looks like, it doesn't allow for them to have that ownership, and it doesn't allow them to really affirm where they think they are. So again, it's put out there for a conversation. Those adjustments can be made, and the same thing goes for the HHS. They initially displayed that. I said, well, that will probably, it will more than likely stop us mid-sentence. So I was surprised that you guys at least waited.
I thought they were very kind, Kenny, very kind.
I took notes right away. I was just waiting for my time.
Being patient.
I already have my phone notes too.
We've got a few.
Yep.
I,
That's not a deal breaker for us. Yeah, we're just trying to create consistency, but it's a really good point, and you would.
Yeah. No, and I caught the consistency as I went through. That's why it was nice to wait until the end to get that note. And I like everything.
Yeah.
It's just I think there's some things.
I think we can make that change.
Yeah, that one's easy. But yeah.
And in all honesty, the way I foresee those word marks being used, so the monogram and the word, I foresee using Andrews Elementary School more than the abbreviation anyway.
Yeah.
A lot of the abbreviated is more back end, and your shop talk per se. You know, when we talk, we say HNHS.
Yeah.
You know, when we present somebody from outside, we say Huntington High School, right? So it's there's more than one purpose for all these assets here, but that's how I foresee the abbreviated form being used.
I think we all appreciate all the time you've spent going to each school and working with subgroups there that truly, are in it every day. So two comments I would make on Roanoke. I'm glad to see that we're looking at a different logo. I like something like the Rockets personally, and then Salamonie. I don't know how. I mean, the town of Warren has tremendous pride in their history. One thing I've always thought, because we've talked about this off and on my whole time on the board, just about it went from, at one point, was everybody just going to be Vikings all the way down to elementary school? Kind of like, I think Warsaw might do that. Both of their middle schools are the same mascot. But I think we've decided each school is kind of a unique community. The Salamonie, the Lightning Five are a famous basketball team from way back when in Warren. So I don't know if Salamonie's considering something other than Rebels. I think Lightning would be a pretty cool logo for them. Just my 2 cents.
Since this conversation started back in this fall, and having my office out at Salamonie, I was often approached with the big concern of changing Salamonie.
Oh, okay.
I heard it loud and clear that they did not want that. And that's our starting point now. After our admin meeting last week, those conversations with stakeholders out there have started. Now there's a base. So if there is a change, if they see something that has a better opportunity, we're all ears. We want to represent those communities well. Again, this is just basis because that's what I heard loud and clear, not only from teachers and the admin out there, but just community members when I was out at events.
Okay.
Talking about that. So whether it becomes a horse, I don't know. Again, that was a starting point. I've had those conversations with Elizabeth Kitchen out there. We're brainstorming, and they have some deadlines to hit that are fairly short, but they're already. I'm already getting feedback, which is good. So I'm excited with that.
Yeah.
Board, and out of respect to everyone's time and the other presenters, we're a couple minutes over, but because this topic is new to you, please know that we want to get this right. You're going to have some time to not only think about, but continue to ask questions, talk about. The first time you see anything, you get some thoughts, and then you'll take it home. And like I said, we want to make sure we hit timelines in the future, but I know I'm going to speak for Mr. Trout. It's an important decision, and he wants it right. And when we get it right, that's when we'll act on this. And so he knows this is the first time you're looking at it. Principals, first time they were looking at it. Stakeholders have now begun to look at it. So as the process plays out, I'm glad we've got Big and Kenny driving the boat on this. They're extremely talented. I cannot thank you guys enough for the amount of patience you've had with guys like me on that committee. Part of my brain does not work that way artistically. I know that's a shocker to some of you, but I'm pretty concrete. So I will just say this, they've listened to lots of it. We now are to the point where we're taking the input from multiple groups, including this 7, and we'll get there. It's just a matter of when we get there. And so everything you'll see that's sent out will have the watermark on it that it's not a final product, it's a draft. And then when we get to the point where we're all comfortable, we'll bring that forward to you. So as needed, we'll be back to talk about it. And when you're comfortable, that's when we'll be comfortable.
Just have one final follow-up. At the end of this, will we trademark all of these logos as ours? Are they going to be trademarkable?
That often represents a cost. Absolutely, you want to TM them, but to get a registered mark, that represents a legal cost.
But they could be if we chose to.
Potentially.
Yeah, okay.
Potentially. Sometimes the patent office can be a little.
Well, I deal with them periodically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes what you think you can protect, sometimes they can say you can't, but usually, and we haven't seen anything, especially the school names and design that would suggest that you could not.
Okay.
And Ryan, previous experience on this, there's some generalized contracts that schools cover themselves on a wide variety of these topics that when other shops use it, there's a percentage that the school agrees to that comes back to them, his previous experience on that. So those are pretty standard, and I'm sure maybe Huntington already has them, but in reality, I'll just let you know it's very possible to get those.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure working with this team. Your community is amazing. We're excited about the things that Huntington County Public Schools is doing, and we're glad to be a part of it. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Super job, guys. Thank you. Mr. Peters, I believe you're up with item 2.
Yes, tonight we have Huntington County Health Department Environmental Health Specialist and Chief Sanitarian, Alicia Simons. If you remember, Alicia and Dr. Matt Flieger were here on April 8th at our board work session. And so Alicia is here tonight, and thank you, Alicia, for being here to present an update and results of the Andrews water test. So again, we appreciate you being here and taking the time.
Hello, guys. So, those are the water sample results. Figured you guys would want to see those. Dr. Matt's not able to make it tonight. He got held up at work or something. I don't know. I got an email at like 4:15, so he's doing something that Dr. Matt does. You never know where he is any given day. I actually did 5 results, so that's kind of what you'll see in there. I tested 2 outside areas, and I actually did 3 samples actually in the elementary school. The first place is the drinking fountain right in front of the main entryway door. And then I did the staff kitchen right there as you walk. You go down that left-hand hallway there towards the fourth grade pod. That was the staff kitchen. And then I tested the drinking fountain actually in the fourth grade pod. Everything pretty much came back good. I sent them to the IDEM drinking water lab analyst people to make sure that I was reading everything correctly. And they said my samples actually came back lower than the outside lab was getting. So I don't know if I was doing something right, but you will see there are some high numbers on there, but those are actually the disinfectants that are put in the water. And I was a little concerned. That's kind of why I asked for a second look on those. They said that the way those are done, they take 4 consecutive samples, and then they take the average of those 4 consecutive samples, and the average is what they use to determine EPA drinking levels. So the way they kind of added those up, we are allowed 80 parts per billion on those specific numbers. So we're still way under on those higher disinfectants that you see on there. So the chloroform and the bromo dichloromethane and the other ones on there that I won't try and pronounce because I don't really want to deal with them. But yeah, so those are all part of the disinfectants and the disinfection byproduct rules that the EPA does. They just react with the stuff in the water, and that's what you get out of them. So that's kind of what that is. They form naturally. If you're looking at a normal water result, you won't actually see those broke down. You'll see those as like TTHM or your haloacetic acid, so they'll be labeled as like HAA5, something along those lines. So that's kind of how they label those, and that's why they label them that way, is because they don't break them down. They're usually just a basic overall average of those on there. So the papers are all stick together on here. So basically, the slides kind of explains a little bit of it. The stage 1 disinfectant and byproducts rule reduces the exposure of disinfection byproducts, and it applies to community water systems that serve fewer than 10,000 people and adding disinfectant to drinking water. So anywhere that a disinfectant is added, such as chlorine, bromine, pretty much anything that you add to your swimming pool, this rule applies to them. There is also a stage 2 disinfectant and disinfection byproduct rule covered under Rule 4. So that is actually what makes cities and counties monitor for the TTHMs and the haloacetic acids, and that is what targets your public water system. So that's where like Huntington City and Andrews and all that falls under. So that's why we have to test drinking water and things like that. So that's kind of why we are the way we are. But basically what IDEM told me, so the Indiana Department of Groundwater Management, is Andrews looks great. The school actually has nothing to be concerned of, and our test samples look really good. So you guys should be in really good shape.
Would the next testing be? Do you do it quarterly? Is that?
I don't have an
Sure. Okay, I just wondered if, since school's not for another couple months, if, I don't, everybody's worried about the water in Andrews, it's always going to be the topic, and so we just want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to pay attention to it. Yeah.
I mean, even if you guys did want me to go back out there, unfortunately, our lab is now a month and a half behind because they had a machine go down. So our best bet would be to go to an outside lab, and then it would end up costing us a whole bunch of money. I mean, I can go ahead and sample if you want, but I wouldn't do probably samples back.
I'll leave that decision up to the bosses.
I understand that. I have no problem going back out for you guys, but I wouldn't understand that for sure.
But what I'm hearing is you're thinking there's not a need at this point because,
I wouldn't say.
yeah. What would cause that need to change if we get word that their equipment that's currently is starting to fail, or there's another issue? Is that a time that we should think, oh, maybe we should look at doing something again?
I do get those quarterly reports from IDEM.
Okay.
I do review those, so if I was to see a spike or anything on there, I wouldn't even hesitate, I would just go back out there and do my own sampling.
Mr. Brimbury, do you know if we also get those, or are we just going to rely on the health department to kind of review those because they know what they're looking at?
No, I'm not going to answer for what Mr. Trout receives, but I believe we get the reports not firsthand, we get them secondhand.
Okay.
Would be my understanding. So they would advise us, not the other way.
Cool. Thank you for this.
Thank you. Alicia, great job. Appreciate your findings and all the work you've done for not just Andrews, but making sure everybody understands that the water is in good shape and their concerns are been validated in terms of, hey, we've looked into it and the water's safe at Andrews. Yep.
Thank you. Thanks.
Mr. Terry Thornsbury is here next. Terry has got lots on his plate, and he'll give us an update on the family and consumer science, the Salamonie HVAC, the science renovation, and then looking at future projects tonight. So, Terry, thanks for being here again.
I'll be the board member to ask the first question. Is it done yet? Somebody had to ask me that.
Terry's not laughing.
There we go. Okay. Thinking about it. All right, so as that loads, it's a huge file. I added a few images. So tonight I'm going to go over the projects that are currently under construction here in this building. Then I'm going to talk about some future projects as well. So currently, the big mechanical project, as we've called it for the last year or so, is under construction. And if you look out front, you'll kind of see two projects as far as what's in the drive. The dirt is from the science block project, and that's not from the mechanical room, so it's good. Yeah, but you see dumpsters with old mechanical parts sticking out of them. That's all recycling, metal recycling, so it's great. So this is a picture of the penthouse up on the building that had the Huntington North High School on it. Part of it's still there. This opening, this picture is how they're getting equipment in and out. And they're going to stage a crane out front soon, and then they'll be taking the big pieces in and out that way. We're also replacing the roof system and the metal siding on the penthouse at the same time. So inside the building, if you turn around, you'll see the fin tube that's under the windows. That all has been, at least the cabinets have been replaced. The fin tube was fine behind it. We just replaced the box that covers it. So that's all, mostly almost all done. And then there's small heaters throughout the building that are being replaced as well. So construction-wise for this project, we're doing that front penthouse this summer. We're doing the back penthouse, if you're in the front of the building, the back penthouse next summer, and plan would be to be done by fall of next year.
Any surprises so far up there?
No, nothing. There were just a few things came up about coordination between contractors here and the drawings, because I got some odd ones that I'm like, they're like, these restrooms don't even exist. I'm like, you're in the wrong part of the building. So just trying to direct them in the right direction. So we're here a lot, so we can hold their hand if we need to and walk them around. But and even the contractors who've been here a few months, they're like, this building's confusing. I'm like, no, it's a piece of cake once you figure it out. So it's just spread out. So family and consumer science, I just walked down and looked at that, and also science block, when I got here a little bit early. It no longer looks like that at all. It is completely gone. And what's there now is there's some openings in the floor where we're taking out underground piping and replacing it with new. And also the walls now are metal stud walls, so you can see through the walls. Ceiling's gone, lighting's gone, everything's gone completely. So that was a picture from about a week ago, and you could see the tile floor was still there and the walls were still there, but now it's completely gone. So that project's moving along well. You've seen these. This is kind of a rerun as far as images. So the new layout's more of a culinary arts commercial kitchen layout where it's all straight line with movable equipment, stainless steel everywhere, epoxy floors, new equipment. Actually, some of the new casework I saw in the hallway already, so I'm going to get the contractor to wrap that up and protect it because it's right outside the door. So I just saw that when I walked through there. So just a few more of those images. Again, this one is scheduled to be completed, actually not the end of May, but that's the beginning of it. We're planning to have this one done before school opens this fall. So. Science block, right now, if you go up there, and I walk around with it a little bit, it looks like a Minecraft game. So it's a jigsaw puzzle of concrete that's missing, and then we're down 4 feet in some areas. We're taking out old piping and replacing again. Taking out piping we no longer need that went to all of the different science casework. All right. So things are going along well up there too. We did have a few pieces of equipment that we found above the ceiling that we didn't realize were there. So we got that stuff. And I approved it this morning, and I went up there and it's already gone. So that was good. Contractors are doing a great job moving through things and amazingly fast. Considering where we were just a couple weeks ago, all of it was still there, and now it's all completely gone. Metal stud walls now, everything's opened up. There's no ceiling, no lighting. The plan, they've already have the doors framed in, the windows are framed in on the exterior perimeter wall. They're going to get that going so that they can then enclose that space. Without causing too many disruptions. There's plastic around everything to try to isolate. Okay, I can yell. So, again, science block is going really well. This is a good shot of what's there. It's gone. It's completely gone. And it really gives you an idea how large that space is.
That's amazing, yeah.
It is crazy.
It's a big room with everything going in it.
Yeah, it hasn't looked like that since 1968, right?
No.
Oh.
We're going to try Plan C.
All right, Plan C. All right. Okay. It's pretty impressive. I think what we're going to try to do, Mr. Brimbury, is next month do a walking tour. There should be it'll be amazing how much they'll get done by this time next month. But we should be able to do a walking tour, and you guys can get eyes on it. So that'll be a lot more exciting than looking at this. Again, 10 new classrooms. The objective is to get at least 5 done before school starts in the fall. The new pod layout. So this is why the jigsaw puzzle is up there now of concrete, because now we have to get gas, water, sanitary, everything to all of these individual locations. So schedule for this is May through November. So once school starts, the contractor will switch to second shift and then everything will be finished hopefully by November during second shift. There's really not been much of any surprises except, like I said, a few things above the ceiling. No big concerns with saw cutting concrete. I mean, considering the mess that they could have made, they've done a great job keeping the building clean and keeping it, fairly tidy, because I know Beth would not tolerate it if they did not. So, and she keeps an eye on things and lets us know if there's any issues at all. We meet every 2 weeks for these projects and the mechanical projects, and our meeting's Wednesday of this week. So we come in, we do the meetings with the contractor, we walk around, look at any issues, document everything, put field reports together, and make sure that we keep track of it as best we can. Next would be the next projects, or as future projects. We're working on the design for Salamonie HVAC replacement. We've been working on the design for a while because we were trying to figure out scope of the project, our cost estimate, and then also working with Valerie in regard to funds available. So we're still working through that, and I need to set up a meeting so that everybody can talk through that as a group to see where we are. There's a lot going on, and also with phasing of Salamonie is a little trickier because we have large mechanical room down in the building, and then we have a penthouse upstairs with 13 different pieces of equipment in it. We cannot get all that done in one summer, so that building is going to be phased a little different to where we do it continuous. So the idea would be to tackle the main plant, as we call it, on the first floor of the building. We tackle during the summer with some equipment that serves occupied space during that summer, and then go into the fall, winter, and spring and do that other equipment. There, luckily, the penthouse is for kind of freestanding, so you can access it from all areas. And also, we don't have the same kind of roof system we have here, so we can take off the siding and panels, get the equipment in and out all around it. And there, we're going to put the siding back on, repaint it, clean things up, and leave it as is. So this equipment is similar to what's here in the high school. It's old. This is the only building that has steam heat in it, which I know in talking to Rich, they really, really, really want to go away because it's difficult to deal with. So we're looking forward to updating everything and getting this one moving even faster. So we're in pretty good shape on our end. We just need to set up another meeting to talk about budget and scope and make sure we get dialed in. Our objective is to design as much as we can with deduct alternates so that we can get down to a price we can afford if things come in over budget. We have seen really good competitive bids lately. We just bid some work over in Fulton County and had 6 contractors show up for the bids, and we ended up getting 4 bids and came in right on budget. So it's good. Contractors are getting a little hungrier for work, and we're seeing good turnouts. So one thing with Salamonie as well is there is, and it took us a while to figure out what was going on, but there is a second floor mezzanine in Salamonie that's kind of hidden. It's not accessible to the outside of the building anywhere, but it has all the equipment in it that serves the natatorium. And we have to figure out how to get that equipment out of the building because it's not on the roof. It's in the building, but it's on a second floor level, and the only way up there is one ladder. So we figure out how to get that out, and just it's a huge room, and it doesn't have that much equipment in it. It was pretty interesting how they designed it, but we figured it all out. It took a while, a lot of crawling above the ceilings and a lot of flashlight work. So that's the penthouse. It looks similar to what you can see on the front of this building, but it's just a big box up there with metal siding. The paint's aged and needs repainted, cleaned up, but otherwise pretty good condition. So this one is the one we've talked about a few times, and we actually did a walking tour on this one back last year.
Before
in the
you
fall.
go next, can I ask a question to Ms. Moore?
You may, Ryan. Yeah.
That's, Salamonie's taken care of out of a GO bond, is that right?
23.
The 23 GO? Thank you. I just want to make sure I knew where this funding source
Yeah,
was.
the last bond that was adopted, 23, was for Salamonie purposes only, I believe how it was written. We can check, but that was a smaller bond compared to the larger one that you're at the end of the next 2 years with Huntington North, which was your 22 bond. And so as Terry's talking about this one, as we finish up major mechanical, as we finish up the science, we finish up the facts, the future project of the remaining part of the 22 bond, where he talked about, what do we want to do, lighting? Do we want to do, restrooms? What do you want to do with the rest of it? Because there's a lot of need, and the money is now, down to decision-making. The Salamonie is on its separate one, and that was the one adopted in 23 for HVAC. And so as we discuss those, you're coming, Huntington North is your 22, Salamonie is your 23.
Thank you for that clarification.
Great question. I appreciate it. So this one, we've talked about, like I said, a few times. We've done a walking tour last fall. This is for this building. It's ceilings, lights, mechanical, the PA system, and piping that's above the ceiling. This design we've been working on because this is the entire building, and the complexity of understanding how to address all of those items, make it fit within the budget. We thought, okay, here's what we think we have, and here's what we think the cost is going to be. As we came in and started actually looking at every single space, getting above the ceilings, digging into the details, and getting quotes and costs from vendors and suppliers, we realized that we don't have enough money to do the entire building. So this color-coded plan is what we've been working on to show deduct alternate options to get it within budget. But also there's areas of this that are grayed out that are not being addressed at all in this project. So that would include the library, that would include the art room spaces, and that would include what people call the new science wing from the 1980s. So we just don't have the budget to do everything. What we do have the budget for would be about $1.5 million in piping replacements above the ceiling so that we have a nice ceiling that looks like this when it's done, and it doesn't have stains on it the next week because there's pipes above it that leak. We do have money to do the PA system for the entire building, and it's literally has duct tapes and Band-Aids holding it together now, and it works off of the building management system that's going away, so it has to be replaced. And then the color codes show, like I said, these are 5 options to get the price down if the bid comes in over our overall budget. So those 5 items there equate to about $1.5 million to get us down to a number that hopefully we can afford to do, unless Valerie finds a pot of gold and gives me more money. So, and she said no so far. So, so that's where we are in this project. I haven't provided a proposal to you guys yet, even though we've been designing, because I was concerned about where we were budget and scope. So, because we didn't want to design $10 million worth of work and you only have $5 million to spend. It doesn't make sense. So we've had to really narrow down based on good numbers and good information, and this is where we are right now. And we've done, like I said, the walking tour, and obviously this is a cosmetic thing mostly for the entire building, because the ceiling system in here is original to the building, has been repainted in the past because of rust and issues where the HVAC used to be turned off in the building during the summer. Lighting systems are original, and PA system, like I said, is original. What's new is the fire alarm and security system that's in the ceiling, so that'll be all salvaged and put back in place. It's just cosmetically it looks bad and does not look anything like this ceiling in here, and the new design will be this ceiling in here. So a really clean, modern, nice look, plus LED lighting that'll be recessed. Nothing will be hanging below the ceiling anymore. All new mechanical diffusers and supply grills to really clean this whole thing up and make the building look so drastically different, especially the lighting. You can't remember what the lighting looked like in here, but it's so much brighter in here than it used to be because of switching to LED.
Terry, a question on that. I'm always interested from a guy who does lots of different building projects. One of the things I noticed when I came back to Huntington was this particular building was the lighting. When I came here to visit, it was certainly not like this. It is very dark.
Right.
It is dark in the halls, it's dark in the classrooms, and so. How does Huntington North's lighting system and how does that compare to some of the other places that you go to visit in these larger high schools or even the moderate-sized ones, just for comparison contrast purposes?
Right. We've dealt with this issue time and time and time again, where it's an outdated fluorescent system that was original to the building, and they continue to replace light bulbs and those type of things. I've talked to Rich, at least here, they've been changing to an LED tube. They have to dispose of parts and pieces of the light fixture and then go to LED, which helps on energy, but it's only when needed as far as when they make that change. But the quality of light and the amount of lumens that we get out of these new LED fixtures is amazing. So the number of fixtures in the entire building will be reduced as far as quantity. They'll switch to LED so you have less energy usage. We'll actually be able to apply for credits from Duke that'll be basically come back in the form of a check to the school system, and it's $6 and something a light fixture. So we're working with Duke on that already to get that money back. We'll have to spend the money, and then the money will come back to the school in a check. So that'll be great. The thing that we find, Chuck, to answer your question the most, is that people are amazed about the difference in the way it makes it feel and it look. They're like, I never knew it could be that bright in here. I never knew it could be, the building could look this great, because it helps everything look better. The floors, the walls, the ceilings, it all just helps bring it to life. It's like in here,
Yes.
We didn't save the floor, we just polished the concrete. But you walk in here and you see this ceiling and you see these cool light fixtures and people get excited. And I hear about it constantly.
Right.
And I get a pat on the back all the time about what we did in here. And I'm like, it's just what we do. And this is a more modern twist on how to make this older building look new again. So we're excited about this project because we know it'll affect the entire thing, except for where we can't afford it. So, but some of those will be behind closed doors and you won't see it. So, but the hope is that those spaces that we're not going to include will become projects of their own in the future, like the library, like the art rooms, and eventually those science rooms from the 80s. So
this question's from Ms. Moore. So the reason I asked about the Salamonie project is because I knew that was the last time we did a GEO bond. Our next time to be able to be eligible for a GEO bond is what, 3 years from that time frame, if I remember right, or am I off?
Don't have that information offhand. I will absolutely bring it
Okay.
to the next board meeting. And I appreciate Mr. Thornberry's transparency when it comes to, the plethora of projects, because there are a lot of projects. And then depending on the climate of how the bids are and where we are with dollars, it's an ever-changing, prioritization of that, this, and to be transparent of where we are, with options, and to bring it to the table. So, but I'll absolutely collaborate with Mrs. Smith and bring that to the table at the next board meeting we have.
Because the reason I'm asking is that if we do have to start cutting, I would like to know then when our next option to get some of that stuff in, so we're fully aware of if we have a hard decision. I want to know, well, then if we won't get this for another 3 years, 4 years, 10 years. Just curious to know what that is. I know we've done it, but it's been a while since we maybe discussed it, so it might be a good time to kind of review that before we make final decisions on some of that. So I appreciate it.
Great question, thank you.
So if I'm doing the math, are you guesstimating 3 million left over? Or I guess what are you operating under number-wise after we finish science and facts and the roof? Not the roof.
Penthouse.
Right.
Penthouses and HVAC.
Well, and even with that 3 million, there's a lot of contingency dollars. That, the more projects we have, the more that we have tied up in contingency dollars. So, depending on those back-end projects and what contingency looks like, then determines how much we can fold and what the capacity of for instance, this lighting project can can withstand. So, very critical point right now. I don't want to not answer. I want to speak from a place of validity, and we'll absolutely make that an agenda item for our June board meeting here.
Yeah, and I know all you can do is guesstimate because you might
Right.
have an overrun on one of these other parts that we didn't anticipate for some reason. So,
Hopefully not, but yes.
is that why? So, my looking at all the needs that we have, it's hard for me to prioritize one over the other. I think the restrooms are a huge need. They're just not in very good shape, and there's things that we could do to dramatically improve that. But is that a situation where, like, one restroom is redo, men and women, is going to be more than we have left over to use?
Right now, based on the funds available, the lighting project, ceilings, lightings, PA, all that'll take the remainder of the bond. And that, except for any residual contingency money that rolls out of mechanical, rolls out of science, there's really not going to be much that comes out of family and consumer science. But in the case of big mechanical, there's $500,000 in contingency funds in that project for unknowns. And right now we've spent $40-some thousand. So there could be a considerable amount of money that could be used for restrooms on the tail end. The issue is timing. That by the time we know what money's left in that project, the bond is at its end. So Valerie knows more about what happens with that, but your funding, and as far as how you pay for it, changes. It could be done. I've done projects with other school corporations beyond a 3-year period when the bond was set for a 3-year time period. It's just how it gets paid back, how the money gets paid back, and how all that happens. So we've talked about it because we put that on the radar, and restrooms is a small enough one that maybe you could do a restroom or two. And I have them in this presentation, so I'll talk about it a little bit. But yeah, we're trying to figure out what's going to be left and what to do with it. Try to tackle lighting if we can, and then restrooms would be the end of the end. And maybe we have enough left to do 2 restrooms, like out of the 4 main restrooms, or something along those lines, or do a little bit of work to all 4 of them, just to make them better. So this is another project that we talked about as a future project. I added a few notes to this, and it's the redesign of the existing library space into a digital cafe with breakout areas, work areas, collaboration spaces, soft seating options for a more relaxing environment. Open up some of the walls so that you can actually have some transparency through the space into the remainder of the building, similar to what it used to be, but not completely. Incorporate modern technology options so that students, faculty, staff can interact within the space through that technology, and reduce the number of books and go to digital options. That's the existing ceiling system that's in there. It is unique to that space. And there are a lot of books. This is more of a digital cafe feel. So a few images that go along with that. And then restrooms. So I've used these restrooms in the past, and I remember what it was like back then. They haven't changed, and they do look pretty much the same. And jokingly, if I would have carved my initials on the wall, they would still be there today. So it was designed in the late 60s, early 70s. So they're mostly original. The fixtures that are there are, again, original, use a tremendous amount of water. They're not low-flow fixtures. So that's an image of boys' restroom and the urinals. And those style of urinals we do not use whatsoever anymore. And they stick off the wall really far. So the boys don't feel comfortable standing there using those because there's no privacy whatsoever. So what happens is there's a backlog for boys trying to get into the toilet, so that they're behind some partition and have some screening. So an idea here would be urinal screens, so you have dividers in between these for some privacy. Obviously, newer fixtures that use a lot less water. And so that way, they probably would be used. There are restrooms that have different urinals in different parts of the building, but they're not open to the students throughout the day. They're more for events back at the auditorium and the arena. So similar with the sinks, everything's just easy, simple, wide open, and a lot of things have changed over the years because of abuse, vandalism, things like that. So I've made some suggestions about maybe we can add some signage inside the restrooms to help deter students from doing certain things in there that they shouldn't be doing. Because we just assume they have, knowledge that they shouldn't be doing certain things, but maybe if we put some signs in there to help to remind them, like if you put urinal screens up, we've had it happen before where you put it up and then they rip them off the wall. So, because they can. So we try to deter that through different means. So signage could be a way of doing that. This is a picture of the current partitions and the layout. So we have ADA accessibility. We do need to add a grab bar, and there's some things that have to be done there. But it's just getting everything updated, so it looks better. The partitions were replaced at some point. These are phenolic partitions, so they are more durable and hold up well. But it's just getting everything cleaned up and make it look nicer, newer. Everything's in there is beige and outdated light fixtures, outdated ceiling. We are replacing at least the exhaust systems as part of the big mechanical project because it's unbelievable how much stuff, dust and dirt and things have got into those exhausts. So we are replacing all that. But ballpark-wise, for each of these 4 main restrooms, you could easily spend $200,000 to $250,000 to renovate one. So, because we're going to relocate plumbing, we're going to rip piping out of the wall, we're going to completely gut these and rebuild them because we don't want to put new fixtures on 1969 pipes because we have access to them. The way that these are set up is they were designed with chases, so we can get to all that piping and replace it and do it right so that you don't have issues with that down the road.
When you say that there's, am I correct to say there's 4 male, 4 female restrooms, so there'd be 8 total? Is that correct?
Right. Yeah,
you're
there's
saying
4
approximately somewhere $200,000 to $300,000 would be a guesstimate if they decided to go that route.
Right. We had estimated just if you put fixtures back where they were, and they've already been changed since this, if you count fixtures now and compare it to these original drawings, they've already been changed once as far as number of fixtures, because that's how they created. If you still look at this, there's no ADA stall, and there's been a stall removed so that they could make them ADA or close to ADA as possible. But right now, they're not ADA because you can't get in. So we have to widen some things, move some walls. So yeah, that's why you end up spending $200,000 to $250,000 to get all this done. But it would be brand new, fresh, look totally different.
Per times 8, correct?
It would be.
Okay.
Well, that's where I was, maybe I didn't explain where I was coming from. How do you prioritize the lighting over the restrooms? Like, is that
Right.
your order of doing things that you think is the best way to do it?
We try to look at it from the standpoint of if the restrooms had fixtures falling off the wall, water leaking on the floor, that would make it an absolute priority. So it's cosmetic. They're not appealing. But neither is the ceiling, neither are the lights, neither are. So for dollars per square foot, we can get a lot more ceilings and lights done than we can restrooms. Because restrooms, kitchens, right behind us, those are the most expensive spaces, and mechanical rooms are the most expensive spaces per square foot because of what it is. So I would love to be able to have residual money and be able to do something to these restrooms, after we get everything else done. We'll have to work with Valerie to understand how that spending gets done, how the payback gets done. Because we know there's going to be something left. We just don't know how much yet. Right.
And that's probably going to come towards the end of next summer's mechanical work, right? So we'll be definitely up against that 3-year deadline, coming close to it, won't we?
It'll be sometime in the summer of 25 that we'll have an idea.
So you said summer of 25. So but we probably can't start anything earlier than that because we have to wait until some of that gets done. And then if we're out of bond money, remind me of another one. We can't use bond money and other money? Does it have to be all bond money, or can we kind of split like different sources?
We can use bond money in capital projects or operations. We have to, at the end of the day, we have to follow in alignment with what those bonds were issued for,
Right.
obviously. And I was going to say something else and I almost lost it. So folding into, like our ongoing capital projects plan within the operations fund, those bond reissuances are, because we have a geo capacity, obviously, that we could do. I've had preliminary conversations when it comes to what's called that arbitrage rebate calculation. We are watching on the yield and the earnings. So I'm working with Ice Miller right now. She's working on those calculations on the back end a little bit in advance of when their normal timeline was scheduled because of this conversation and wanting to understand where we are, being proactive in case we do have to, we don't want to overextend our yield. The market's been very, very competitive, so we are under that yield right now, but then, making sure that we're doing the due diligence in advance.
Right, and our anticipation on lights and ceilings is that we get a contractor who can get enough people to get all of this done in the timeline that we need them to. And it would be a continuous project. It would not stop until it's finished. So there's just a lot to it that we have to work out, and funding is the big piece, and our design is coming together for, like I said, for the project, for the ceilings and lights, and then the hope would be some residual left over to do something in the restrooms. Even just replacing a fixture that you could mount back and when you renovate the whole thing would be better than nothing, because that's another thing that Rich and I have talked about is the amount of water that is used in those restrooms because of those old fixtures is a lot of water. So,
Terry, when do you anticipate needing not only a final number from funds available for possible lighting project, but also a decision from the board and recommendation to move forward? What month is your best estimate for that?
Right now, my plan was to, because I got updates earlier today for ceilings and lights and as well as Salamonie from our team. So I'm planning to have proposals to you guys this week for both of those projects for board review.
Okay.
So we've already been working a lot on the projects without that approval because we have to keep moving. We're running out of time. So I'm going to have those to you. You guys can decide what you want us to do, if you want us to move forward. And if you decide something else, then that's on us because we took the risk. So I'm fine with it. We're comfortable with what we're doing because we know it needs to be done at some point. No matter
what I'm hearing you saying is a decision and recommendation from the district and the board would be as soon as they can get to that point, you're ready to move.
Correct.
Okay. Final questions for Terry, and out of respect for everyone's time tonight, any final questions for Terry?
I'm just going to say, Chuck, Matt, me and you have been the two oldest ones here. We've done a lot of projects.
Years on the board.
I'll go with that statement, Gary.
This has been such a pleasure to have worked with you through all this because we know exactly what's going on, and in the past we've not always had that, Matt. We've been in the dark a lot. When we're not in the dark with anything with you, and I as a board, I think we're appreciative of what you're doing and continue to do the hard work. And it's been nice working with you.
I appreciate it.
Terry, I would echo that from a couple of different corporations here. I keep saying it. I'm not your props guy, but you're the best I've worked with on communication, clarity for all audiences. You're in the weeds on everything, but it makes sense to all people who have to make decisions. So I appreciate what you do.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
One question.
Go ahead.
Did you save the hornet's nest?
Did not.
Didn't?
I don't know where it is. Okay. I looked for it when I was down there. It's not there.
Oh, no worries.
The only other question related to restrooms is if we could only do two, I would love to have Mr. McLaughlin and the staff up here's recommendations on which one we do, restrooms wise.
Certainly.
If that could help, because and then to you is
Yeah, great idea.
Is there a way, that space is kind of limited, is there any extra space that we could maybe even expand that in your thought processes?
We looked at it, and it gets really tricky. You have to go outside the building, and that can only be done in a couple locations, so
Okay.
we have
Well,
looked at it.
those additional things, because even when I went here, and we won't talk how long that ago was,
Right.
it seems, and there were a lot more students here at that time too, just seems like there were never enough restrooms. So anything we could do to either A, get more restrooms, or B, improve them in any way, shape, or form, because you're correct, that's the same thing that I walked into when I was here.
Right.
To improve that experience, I think would be better for our students, so.
Mr. McLaughlin could not agree more with you. I mean, he is saying when possible, we need to consider it. He understands it might be at the end or even on a future one, or even maybe money at the end to say we're going to do this immediately and then others. He would advocate for that as well
And,
for his students.
yeah, and then does it make sense even if we can't do it? Just four pods, do we need to even maybe at some point further down the line, maybe think about adding a couple more at some point? What are your thoughts, or would it make sense to even open up? Because to me, if there are restrooms in the athletic area, we have classrooms down there. Should those be opened up? Maybe that's another thing that we need to talk about as well.
Those discussions have certainly started when, a few years ago when I was here, Mr. Wall, those were open during the day, properly supervised and so on. And so the maximizing the areas of school, supervising it properly, and then making sure that those are prioritized, those discussions are going on with the high school leadership.
Cool, appreciate it. Thanks for all the information tonight.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Terry. Wonderful as always.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Our last, but certainly not least, Mr. Draper is here. We have a lot of buckets that went into place at Huntington North in the past couple of years, and I'm so proud of the Viking Success Academy. Angela Lassiter and Mr. Draper have kind of taken the lead on this, and what I would say is we're super proud of a lot of things at Huntington North. The SATs are going up and continue to go up. The dual credit offerings, we're over 1,400. Our graduation rate's going to be just shy of 93-ish%, depending on the cohort. We have began a consistent, immediate process day one of evaluating cohorts. And what that means is the kids who entered that class, the retention of those students becomes a priority, and monitoring reasons if somebody chooses to leave that cohort becomes really key data and communication. That started day one a couple of years ago. Then we started looking at programming, and the programming of the Success Academy, the programming of what Tiffany Drummond does, the expansion of those, but also understanding why you're putting programming in for different groups of children is what top high schools do. It's what they do. They have 5, 6 buckets, and they say we have a programming for all children at all stages. This particular one is paying dividends for our kids. I try to go in every week or two and see Mr. Draper and his students. I also go to the alt school and see those students. And what I'm going to tell you is the programming by Mr. Draper, who's our newest assistant principal, but what he has allowed to happen for a group of kids is not just credit recovery. Credit recovery is the ability to get the kid back to the cohort so he can graduate. Yes, that is super important. The culture in which you do that is what changes kids' ability to feel about how they feel success is determined for them. That culture is as important as the end result for that child. They have Meg. Jay has Meg showing up, and once a week is meeting with small groups to go through small group activities, individual health, mental health, processing what it looks like after school, processing how things are done in the home and not in the home versus school. All of those things are taking place in there. It's not just getting a math or English credit. And if you were to tour around the country, which I have, and said, what do you do for children? Well, you got to find a way to help them. Well, you got to have multiple buckets to help them today. And I'm so proud that Mr. Draper's here tonight to talk about the success of his program. He has unbelievably good data. But I will tell you, it looks different because it is different. And that's what I asked him to do a couple years ago. I said, we got to go where the kids are, and we got to make it work for them. He's done that in a manner which I would match ours against anybody's in the state, and I've seen the top 20, 25 anywhere in the state. And so it does look different. It's intentional that it looks different. The results are amazing, Mr. Draper, and you know that, and I know how proud of your kids are. So I appreciate you being here to talk about your kids, and I look forward to your presentation tonight.
Well, I first thank Mr. Brimbury for his support. What he has to say is very humbling for us. I tried to have some students here tonight, but as difficult as it was a process to get some of them to graduate, getting them to come on June 10th was even more difficult. So my partner in crime, Miss Laster, wasn't able to be here tonight either, but we'll be talking about the impact that she had on Success Academy as well. I brought a couple of students from Success Academy last fall. We started out with some really, really good initial success, and we were able to maintain that success. So I want to share some numbers with you. If you walk into our classroom on any given day, I would say it's an environment where most teachers probably wouldn't be comfortable, and that was intentional. The students' comfort and their success was what primarily drove us in our decision making. There it goes. All right. So we had taught the students some Latin this year also. We had 2 Latin mottos. Students, part of the problem is we haven't worked consistently at things, and, just being very truthful with students and talking about those things with them, and overcoming a lot of things. If we talk about work, and we're more addressing academic type work, but it's all the obstacles that have been in place and been that we have to overcome to be able to actually accomplish some things. And that's what we actually spent more time on a day-to-day basis. So again, I'm Mr. Draper. I've been in education for 27 years. Normally I taught physics, chemistry, and math. Those are my comfort areas. So originally going into this school year, I didn't really have any idea how I was going to handle English. It's not my strong suit, and somehow Mr. McLaughlin found Angela Lassiter. Originally was hired as a paraprofessional, and kind of a teaching assistant, and then we found out some more about her, and she has 2 master's degrees in English and professional writing. So English became her forte. She took it over, developed and designed a brand new curriculum for alternative education students, and we had a lot of success with that. She's also been teaching at Ivy Tech, collegiate level, for a number of years, and hopefully is going to continue to be involved with some of our virtual programs as those continue to expand as well. So every good organization, I feel like, has to have a strong mission statement. Our mission statement focused on a few things. We wanted to empower students. We wanted to strive for excellence, personalize the support they had, value them as individuals, and instill confidence in them. And, the way mission is how you're going to get there, vision is where you want to eventually be. And again, we focus on empowering students, striving for excellence, having that personalized support, value them as individuals, and instill confidence that they can not just accomplish their academics, but accomplish some major life goals as well. So obviously, number one, we wanted to help students catch up and graduate. That was the number one thing, to get students matched back up with their cohorts as far as catch up on credits, be where they should be at the end of their freshman, sophomore, and junior years. Also, mostly seniors in the program. Out of all of our students, half of them were seniors. And, exposure to Indiana employability skills, work on social emotional learning activities, and still growth mindset. We didn't use I can't. It just wasn't allowed in there. teach kids about mindfulness, and we also talked about Coach Wooden's Pyramid of Success from time to time. So, overcoming obstacles and the things that students come in with, we have students that are homeless. We have students that have moved multiple times within the district, transferred schools, leave the district, back to the district, back and forth. Students living in group homes, students that have dealt with death of a parent, grandparents, siblings, primary caregivers, DCS, being removed from home, students with PTSD, depression, anxiety, suspensions, expulsions, probation, you name it. The issues that our students have runs the gamut. And that also just includes negative school experiences. And, some kids just don't like school. But when you see what students are trying to overcome, it's no wonder we have students that are struggling with our academics. So we try to provide an avenue to help students with those things, not to ignore those things, to accept that student as they were, and make sure they understand that that's a part of them that we can use, sometimes to our advantage. So we kind of have a cool environment, I guess is the best way to say it. If you come in, we got 10 or so bean bags we were able to get, and fairly relaxed environment. I think that's what would make most other teachers a little uncomfortable, with how relaxed it is. Tried to be really calm with students. That doesn't necessarily come naturally for me, so that's something that I worked on all year. Finding just different ways to speak with students. A really effective way to work with a student that's had a lot of trauma in their life is to just talk to them at eye level. So if they're sitting at a desk, we'll sit at a desk with them. If they're, whatever they're doing, or stand up with them when you're talking to them. Students work at their own paces. Everything in the room is driven positively. We're continuously reminding students what their goals are, continuously reminding them to keep on task, and motivating students. And it can be, there are some days that are really boring when all the students are doing what they're supposed to. It can get really boring some days. And it's kind of a little different, a little hard to get used to sometimes. But it's amazing what some students are accomplishing. And we've continued some of our programming through into summer school too. So as far as social emotional learning, things that we focused on this year, and this is working hand in hand with Nurse Meg. She is getting trained in, I think she'll be an LPN in psychiatry with her focus. So she was valuable this year to us and what we were trying to accomplish. So self-awareness, decision-making, relationship skills, interpersonal skills. How do I talk to adults differently than I talk to kids my own age? Social awareness, managing your emotions and behaviors, those types of things. So very positive feedback from students on the things that we did with Nurse Meg this year. She was able to meet with 85 of our students, 85% of all the students in 3 different periods every Wednesday for the entire school year. I think maybe one Wednesday a month something would come up where she would have to miss. But topics included just general health, sleep and hygiene, mental health, the difference between a bad day and feeling depressed, what clinical depression is like, coping skills for depression and anxiety. An unbelievable amount of our students have anxiety. Yep. And working with those students can be exhausting on a daily basis if they don't have the tools that they need. Substance abuse, drug use. Meg's able to have a different conversation with students on those topics, more on the health aspect and what it does to your brain, and those kinds of reasons why it's a bad idea. Nurse Meg also helped coordinate a mock grocery store. So the extension agency came in one of the upper gyms and set up an entire grocery store. And then students kind of drew out of a hat what their family scenario was. And then they had a certain amount of money and they had to develop a meal plan and buy groceries for an entire week. And then they were graded on that by the extension coordinators here. We got a lot of great feedback from that. We had students from the Learning Center also come over to participate in that with us. We want to expand on this next year. Nurse Meg and also the school nurse both worked on this together, but with having as many seniors as we have graduating that are moving through something like Success Academy, many of them are going to be on their own, which may or may not have been one of the reasons they end up with us, and helping those students navigate what it's like to get your own insurance. And that's something that we definitely want to expand on in the future to assist those students and give them some more tools as we kind of send them out on their own. We celebrated success continuously. Right around Christmas break, we had an awards breakfast, kind of an awards lunch, and I think Kenny helped with that, put together a presentation that ran on all the televisions. And embarrassed all of our Success Academy students because their names were up. And we had a special banquet table in here, and the cafeteria staff came out carrying platters and served them breakfast in front of everybody. And we made a big deal about what they've accomplished because they deserved to have a big deal made about it. But I do remember one young lady that day is looking at the certificate that we had given all the students, and that's the first certificate she's ever earned in anything her entire life, in her academic and career. So that was a very touching moment. Mr. Trout and I both had to excuse ourselves a little bit at times when we were recognizing the students' successes. Every time a student earns a credit, there's kind of a computer-generated letter that they get that comes out of the computer system. We make a big deal about it in the classroom as well. Every time somebody gets a credit, we yell it out pretty loud. Rest of the students in the classroom give them a short hand, and then we just kind of go from there, and the next person earns a credit. And there are days where it seems like we accomplish more of that than really anything else. We have a cap and gown wall. So as every student was able to meet their graduation requirements, they got a cap on the wall with the graduation gown. We had our little thermometer there. The thermometer represented the number of credits that needed to be earned by seniors. And at the very last day of school, we were at 94%. So the seniors that were in the class earned 94% of the credits that they needed to earn to be able to graduate. And then our credit wall success, we had, going back and forth on different days, there were 6 things that we kind of bounced around a lot, whether it was pyramid of success or self-awareness or, respect, responsibility, those things. So we had hexagons, and we put a hexagon on the wall for every credit that was earned throughout the school year for students in grades 9 through 12. We started out trying to use some mailing labels on them, but when we soon, the expense of the mailing labels was going to be a little much. So there are 507 credits on the wall that were earned throughout the course of the school year, which is, I'm amazed at the number. It's kind of shocking. And it's kind of a good and bad thing when you see that the fact that those were the number of credits that we needed to earn, but the fact that we did earn them. So we worked with 76 total students throughout the course of the school year. And then I put 20 in parentheses over there. We also, in about the last month of the school year, we worked on and off with about 20 different other students that were sent our way in really an unofficial capacity. They weren't necessarily assigned to us for a class period, but we oversaw what they needed to do and accomplish to get done. This summer in summer school, we have 15 students that I'm working with every day during summer school. So 2 freshmen that were in the program. So the 2 freshmen, they each earned 5 credits, and that caught them right up. So, you know, it's hard to kind of imagine a freshman being behind, but because choices they had made going from 8th grade to their freshman year, they were behind. And we were able to catch them up, and they're on pace to graduate. They don't, at this point, they don't need any more alternative education or anything like that. So the sophomore class, we worked with 17 sophomores, and they earned roughly 24 credits. 4 of them were caught up to their cohort, and then an additional 2 made some pretty significant progress to being caught up. And then, you know, 11 students only earned a total of 6 credits, which obviously that means we had some sophomores that didn't earn any. But you're going to have that. And we've looked at the data as far as how many class periods we were able to have a student, and if we had a student for X number of class periods, how many credits they were able to earn. And we have some good data moving forward on how to make decisions for a student and what grade level and how many periods to place them, so we can kind of guarantee some success for them. Yeah. The junior class, 19 juniors earned 53 credits. 3 of them caught up that are on pace, no longer need alternative ed. 6 made a very significant progress. 3 of those 6 are in summer school with me. So by the end of summer school, they should be all caught to their cohort and back on track. And then the other 10 students earned a total of 21 credits. So we had roughly, a freshman through junior, we had 38 students. And of those 38 students, 19 of them caught up to their cohort or made significant progress to do that. So the class we're obviously most proud of, our senior class. We had 38 seniors throughout the course of the year, and they earned 420 credits, which again it's kind of a crazy number. And actually that number now is like 428 because of summer school. As of today, 30 of the 38 graduated. A student finished today. So we had 30 out of 38 graduates. 12 of our students were able to earn enough credits and graduate with all their requirements before the school year even ended. And all 10 of those 12 students entered the workforce directly after they finished. One is in HVAC, 2 of them are in automotive careers. And so we're really proud of those kids. They didn't just finish and not do anything. They finished and went right to work. 5 students, well now 4 students are currently still working to finish up. Over the course of the school year, we had 4 students withdraw. So the students that are working this summer, we're really hoping for 33 out of 34 to graduate. So that would put us at a 97% graduation rate with the population of at-risk students. And I couldn't be more proud of the success that they had this year. So right now, we're at an 89% graduation rate. You know, on their own, maybe half a dozen of those students would have graduated. So, you know, we're looking at 30 students that they wouldn't have graduated without having this opportunity. Of our graduates, 8 were Core 40 diplomas. 24 of the students that have graduated plan to pursue more education. Some of them are going to 4-year schools. A lot of them are going to 2-year schools, or they have some industry pathways they're working on. 5 of our graduates have certifications and graduated with them in recognized industry pathways. Welding, automotive, there's a few in automotive, some in criminal justice. So all in all, when you look at over 500 credits being earned that way, that's 35 years of high school. So in a way, we were able to salvage 35 years of high school just in this past school year. So, I do really appreciate the opportunity to try this and to do this and to give these students this opportunity. It not only makes an impact on their lives for the positive, but if we look at just the local economy, we have more high school graduates that are going to be able to have higher paying jobs, paying citizens, and you can just go on and on. County and
I for all kids in a progressive high school, those pictures of your walls and the kids, that's what it's supposed to look like nationwide. And if you see it, I can tell you, and I'll be kind, a couple years ago, I was very concerned about the intentionality for kids that were struggling in school here. It looked like compared to what maybe other school districts were doing was very different. Allowing programming intentionally for children that have some obstacles. You do not have to change high expectations, but you do have to understand the audience of what hasn't worked and intentionally program for those children. And Huntington North is doing that right now at a lot of levels and a lot of buckets, and it is inspiring. So those of you, or those that hear what Huntington North isn't doing, I will tell you, in a very short period of time, they're doing some things that is best practice nationwide, and you're seeing that with graduation, you're seeing it with dual credits, you're seeing it 1+3, you're seeing it with Success Academy, you'll see it with Alt School shortly, you'll see it with Virtual Academy, you'll see it with online programming. That's what a modern high school does today. And I'm super proud of this particular bucket, and Mr. Draper, thank you for everything that you did the last couple of years working to establish this program here. It was needed.
thank you.
Other comments from the board before we? Mr. Peters, anything before we? Cindy? Val? Appreciate everybody being here tonight, and be safe on your way home.